was 18, in my first semester of college, and had spontaneous, unprotected makeup sex with my long-term boyfriend. I knew immediately I would not have that baby, and I did not feel guilty about that decision, though I suspected this made me something of a monster. I felt sadness, but at that age, in that life, I mostly felt relief. We had sex, and yes, I happened to have a uterus and ovaries hell-bent on reproduction. And our act was neither smart nor mature. But it was his fault, too. My defense was that of a petulant child, but I had no interest in spending my whole life paying for a 5-minute interval of questionable sex with a man who could walk away if he felt like it. As I stood on the balcony, I wondered again, who the hell gets pregnant accidentally more than once? I stared at the horizon and shook my head in disgust as I traveled the recesses of my brain, looking for answers, recalling only a woman in my freshman comparative literature class. She had told me, getting an abortion is like getting your teeth cleaned. When I raised an eyebrow, she explained, it's just something you have to do. She was in her 30s and married to a local rock star. She had bad teeth, 3 children, tattoos, and that haircut of the 90s where bangs were cut stupidly short in a band right against the forehead. I respected her. Her teeth-cleaning theory sounded erroneous, if not downright depraved, but her nonchalance convinced me I would be all right, and that I was even perhaps not quite as foul as I had believed during my trip to the clinic that week, feeling like a slut and regretting with my whole heart those minutes in the dorms. Apparently this is a thing women do. That seemed true. I did it. But I would not do it now, and it didn't feel like the fucking dentist. Back inside, I stretched out on our quilt-covered couch, clicking my tongue at Fat Boy, the giant black and white cat we inherited from Mac's childhood. When feeling particularly affectionate, Fat Boy would turn his head and glance at you from across the room. But that day, he folded up in the crook of my knees and stared up at me, as if he knew things were heavy. I took a deep breath, looking around the apartment, the carpet so bland I couldn't tell what color it was. The kitchen and bathroom floors a yellowed linoleum with pastel blue squares, ripped up and black at the corners. The cabinets were a 1970s brown with gold handles, and metal mini blinds hung above a box air conditioner in the window that would sputter along against California's Central Valley heat. That summer, we moved our mattress beneath the little box, creating a pocket of decency between the white walls. Our television sat on boards and cinder blocks. It was the kind of apartment that never felt alive or permanent, but Mac and I were kids and in love, and it was ours. He was 19, and I was 21. I was right about Mac. He did smile through tears and say all the lovely things I suspected he'd say when I told him I was pregnant. But the next day he added, "If you don't have our baby, I can't stay with you." I considered telling him about the moment I knew I wouldn't have an abortion, but instead I merely nodded. I wasn't ready to speak the words, "I'm having a baby." I was stretching the liminal gray a few days longer. When he spoke those words, he didn't read my face to adjust his tone. He was not afraid of my response or conflict, and there was no subtext. It was merely data to inform a decision. If his statement had been a threat, an attempted entrapment, I would have left immediately on those grounds alone. Fuck you for even trying to get me to stay, I'd have thought. But that's not what he said, and I knew it, because he said it with warm acceptance in his eyes and mouth and forehead, the way he looked at me when he said everything, even when he yelled and postured and I thought maybe I hated him. Or perhaps that's why I hated him, because he seemed capable of only adoration, and even in his anger he was devoted and irrationally loyal. It made me feel a little sick. I get it, man. You can't withstand the resentment you'd feel toward me if I didn't have our baby. But he is not why I had her. I was always going to have her, and I knew it, though I didn't know how to explain that I knew. I didn't understand yet that motherhood is a lot of knowing without knowing. But I knew her. She was already made. I was afraid of having a baby. I was afraid of committing to him like that. I was afraid of what my parents would say. But Mac misread this fear as indecision. I had her because she was meant to be here, and I was meant to be her mother, and I believed that in the same way I know the sun will rise. I had her because the moment I knew of her, she existed, like a strange new friend who moved in and would